Hello, hello. This is a smile of your friend. This is a happy guy to join you in this paradigm, this paradise, this place of safety and joy and happiness. It's Good Friday. Northwest, cloudy day, cloudy showers yesterday. We take that, we take it with grace, we take it with appreciation. The universe is kind of like saying, hello, you can have some of that. Again, ujambo bwana, ujambo mshabiki mwenzangu, habari gani washindaji? Wewe ni shujaa, wewe ni mfalme wa wafalme in your own kingdom. Don't take that for granted. You're a king, you're a queen, you're everything you want to be as long as you believe in it. And don't just plow people with it. Humility is not a bad thing, is it? Well, again, it's episode number 39, looking at life from a perspective of an athlete, athletics. That's where we are speaking from. Hopefully that's where we learn from, and that's where we dance. Talking about dance, hey, by the way, you have noticed something? There's an elephant in the room. We might get to the elephant in the room. Oh man, I like that background. It's incredible. I love it. I'm glad the elephant in the room is legit because elephant could have been an animal symbol in Kenya, but we chose, I don't know, a frog or a jogo, a rooster. Again, I like to have fun while interacting with you because if I don't, my goodness me, I'm gonna be a sad dude. Talking of a dance, let me tell you where I am. I'm in Switzerland. I'm in Switzerland. How do you call Switzerland in Swahili, man? I like to learn every day. Tell me what you think. Thanks for subscribing, by the way, my friend. Thanks for liking. Just click the like button. It's the easiest thing you can ever do to say, I saw you, and you know, I don't know, you look good, you speak well, you talk a lot of, I don't know, athletics, riada. So please, click that like button. And if you say you viewed it, it doesn't take a lot of effort. Anyway, I love you guys and thank you for being my friend, Rafiki wa Milele. Well, Rafiki, if you watch The Lion King, there's a Rafiki punchline from that little guy. What a movie. What a show on the planet. Lion King, Simba wa Mataifa. Well, let me tell you again where I am. I'm reporting from the sideline, the finish line of Lausanne Grand-prix, where the Paris post-Paris athletes, medalists, or athletes in general, are having what they call celebratory lap of honor, led by Letsile Tebogo from Botswana. This guy was submerged, he was avalanched, he was torpedoed by 80,000 fans in his own country, man. That's celebrity status, man, for an athlete who is now the golden boy in 200 Olympics. That's not bad when you go home and you got torpedoed, you got stampeded by 80,000. What do you think of my jacket, man? I'm looking at myself, I don't know why, but you know, self-pity. Self-pity, no. Anyway, so in Lausanne we had Tobago, Letsile, Botswanese. He went out there and told everybody, I'm legit, man. I'm gonna show you what I'm still. I'm in 200 meters. You want that? Runaway guy. He took care of business. I like that. So yeah, I'm watching these athletes doing their dance. And talking of dancing, Mary Moraa, the darling of America, Kenya, I almost said America. I don't know. I've been here quite a while. That's why I speak like a native. Oh, I mean like a local, not a native. I don't want to be canceled here. Yeah, Mary Moraa, 800 meters. I think the only competition she had was herself. I think the Brit is on a TV promotional tour in UK, just, you know, signing checks after checks. She deserved it. She got the gold. Duguma from Ethiopia decided, I'm going home to be anointed. So who takes over? Mary Moraa. Dance, girl, just dance. I like when these athletes do their thing when they finish the race, man. What's wrong with that? Stick your tongue out, stick your finger out, go Ezekiel Kimboy on that raggedy dance of his. You remember those? I don't mind that. Hey, when you win, you can dance. If you lose, there's a dance for that? Okay. Hey, Mary Morat, great 800 meters. She wins in Lausanne. I'm reporting from there, by the way. I took an elephant ride over there. 1500 meters, Jakob Egebsten, the Norwegian, is consistent. 327, man. I tell you what, even the dude from Marokkan, Hooker, had nothing to say about it. 327 is consistent. Listen to me, man. You might not like the guy. He's arrogant. He has a swagger. He has a character. He's tattooed. He's a family guy. But when your gene code or your gene pool is in your family, there's a book. If you give me that book, I'll appreciate it. There's a book his dad wrote. The patriarch of the house wrote. He was their coach. I think there are 5 brothers or 4. I don't know. They are all Olympians, world champions. So it's a tradition within their family. Kenyans, you have no monopoly on the gene of middle distance. The Engelbrecht guy in Norway is in the house. So the guy wins 1500 in Lausanne. That was incredible. And then I have to go to the mountain. I have to go Mount Helgon, man. I have to talk to Sabot Wanyonyi, Emmanuel Wanyonyi. Wow, there he goes. Ding, 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 ding at the bell. He's telling the Canadian, okay, you can take the lead. I know what to do. By the way, if you watch that race, it was funny because I have to give it to Krob, the Canadian. He gets to the 600 meters. He's like, oh, there's a gold medalist right behind me. I'm a silver medalist. Let me pull over or let me give him the inside lane. And then Wanyonyi just like, thank you very much. I'm the new kid on the block. He takes off. I don't know whether Krob thought that he's going to come back on him. If he thought he was going to come back on Wanyonyi, Wanyonyi is like, no, 141.11. By the way, that's the 3rd best time all time. Best time all time. Did I say it correctly? Yeah. That was the former world record before London with Rhodesia. Wilson Kipketer, a Danish former Kenyan friend of mine back in the days, held that record until Rhodesia took care of business in London. So here comes Wanyonyi, is the 3rd best in the world. You can read that anywhere. Legit dude, like him. Adidas, the brand, is very happy with that. If you can watch, this is where they parade their corporations, man. It's always nice to see corporations. I got Adidas, man. I'm gonna wear that. That guy looks legit, man. Hey, Emmanuel Wanyonyi is still with us. He's the king. He's still the king in 800 meters. The quality on 800 meters right now is incredible. I don't remember back in the days where the 4th guy is 142 and he didn't even win. That's the quality and the depth. Beautiful. That's my favorite event, man. The 2-lapper. Lap, 2 laps. Wanyonyi, you're the king, man. I'm looking forward to one day having the conversation with this guy, just like this. I'll be talking to him. Hey, Wanyonyi, how do you feel now? You're on the top of the planet. How do you feel? You'll be like, you want to go to Mount Elgon? I'll say, okay, I'll take a border there with you. Well, I'm in Lausanne reporting for you, so I'm going to come back to my studio. Episode number 39, I'm in the house. It's Joel Kimboy Chesimет, not Kimboy Ezekiel, Joel Kimboy Chesimet. Let me just get into a subject that can be controversial. Controversy sells, right? Does it? What about the truth looking like controversial? Does it? You know, one of the things that you should know about athletics or track and field or running in particular is that it's not been as glamorous historically. It's not been as monetized. It hasn't been in the market for so long. People forget that. I don't, because when I came of age to join the world of athletics, they still call it amateur. It was like amateur. We knew people got paid because you could tell they had a little bit of a taste of that. But historically, athletics has not been a monetized discipline or sport. And I think that history seems to be kind of put in place for people to understand. What you are seeing right now is not been in place for so long. And for some of us who grew up at the time when it was coming of age, so to speak, sometimes we look back and we kind of appreciate what we see in place, that people can make a living out of it. It's a good day for those who can, but it's been a long history. If you think of back in the days, it was political, it was used as a propaganda, as platform, I think, like Jesse Owens, 1936, the monster Adolf Hitler, kind of says the Aryan nation is great. Jesse Owens comes and just kind of just says enough of that nonsense. And then if you go to 68, it's a track and field becomes a statement for Calvin and Carlos when they put their fist up and says, you know, we are not equal in America and we deserve better. So it's become a political thing. While it was that, it wasn't generating anything for the athletes. As much as that sounds great, because Jesse Owens, excuse my English here, I'm a human, I cough. That's my chai, man. You can't get any better than that. Chai to Kenya, that's straight from Kenya. No, the style is from Kenya, not this one, but it's very good. So back to the idea of athletics, and it's the idea that is played politics, but with no monetary value. That's the history. If you talk of Olympics down the road, it's been politics, but who gains? Who is the beneficiary? That's what I'm trying to kind of make a story for athletics and the history a little bit here and see how it works for you and I. So that when we go through this political restlessness and unrest and boycotts, when we hit 1980 Moscow, we moved to Seoul 1988. It's athletics again that propels it to another level. And let me tell you why it becomes a blockbuster. It becomes almost like the ego has landed, so to speak, because here we get into scandals of the highest order. And when I say highest order, we had Ben Johnson, the Canadian, busted for use of steroids in 100 meters after he won the 100 in 9.79. By the way, the gap in that race, if you watch it, was like, what? The guy he was a machine. It's a sad story of Jamaican-born Canadian that scandal becomes his legacy. But it is this legacy, it is this moment that athletics, that running gets a place, it gets the headlines, and still the beneficiaries are not the athletes, the runners themselves. So, and then you had Florence Griffin, the blockbuster lady in the 100 meters, 10.46 in 100 meters. His nails were incredible. The outfit was phenomenal. It was, back in those days, 88, let's face it, to have that outfit and to be able to deliver on a big stage should have been worth money. But still, you could hear this language of amateurs. The idea that even to this day, it is almost scandalous, to be honest with you, to hear an organization that promotes athletics saying IAAF, International Amateur Athletics Association or Federation or whatever you want to call it. Amateur? Why are we playing with? There's nothing amateur when people are training 24/7. There's nothing amateur about. That's a livelihood. That's employment at the highest level. So, 88 scandals, beauty and the queen and the beast, you want to call it. It prepares athletics. It prepares running it becomes the news headlines. It's a must-watch show. It's a must-watch movie. And so you had people like Carl Lewis kind of taking advantage of the prominence or the news grabber of athletics and says, hey, we need to be paid. We need to monetize athletics. We need to monetize this sport. And I think the other place that plays a role in making Olympics a place whereby people can use that as a platform or a place whereby they can jumpstart their careers to even go professional was basketball. America got embarrassed by USSR or Russia back then when they got beaten in the final, and so they're like, no more collegiate, we're gonna go have only professionals in Olympics. So you have this thing playing out in front of our eyes. And so I'm setting this stage because it was from that point on that athletics or track and field or running in general gets a voice. They get a say on the table of we need to be paid. Carl Lewis, I think, to be honest with you, he's been underprojected as the voice or the advocate for athletics in the world of monetizing and professionalizing, whatever that word is, or making athletes earn a living from athletics. He does this incredibly well, and I think it was from that point on that we start to see that athletes were paid, but it was not there was no uniformity in this agreement. There was no total agreement. I think some people are hesitant to make it professional because of this unstable or lack of consensus. The world moves on, and athletes somehow start to get some form of money, some form of payment. And because of that, we have to kind of form agency, professionals who know how to navigate the world of pay, promotion, organizing, middlemen, and how things work out. And it works well in an ideal world when all the parties are involved. You think, you go to a job, you know how to negotiate for your deal, your payment, you know when you get paid, you know what you are getting paid for, and you know those breakdowns. That's an ideal world. It's a Western world. The sad thing is that athletics, if you look at it, there are countries that don't have this knowledge, and Kenya is one of them. So when 88 kind of unleashes this idea, or let's lose the idea of let's get them paid, some people, some elements, rogue, shrewd business people, people who have mastered the art of making money, enter the scenario. They enter the whole landscape, and they enter the landscape to kind of help or propel or kind of negotiate for the poor Kenyans. And so here enters what I'll call Kim McDonald Athletics Management Empire. And I'm pronouncing this correctly. McDonald's Athletics Management Empire. I'll say that it was so big at that time when athletics becomes semi-professional or they are getting paid. It's not very formal, but they're getting paid because Kim find a landing in Kenya. He does. And by the way, we are talking about Brit, and the reason why you can see the empire there. He enters this world of naive, undereducated village boys, village girls, and he canvasses the country and the villages and the urban areas, hunting for talent. He gets them. He gets gold medalists. I think John Gugi, 88 Olympics. I think he went to Kim. So he gets all these great athletes. The issue here is not that he's not a great guy. By the way, he's not with us anymore, so maybe I can speak maybe because he's not here. He passed away, I think, a few years ago in some place in Australia. But Kim takes these talents to a camp. That's a very low blow right there when I say camp, because when you took off colonials and camp, it kind of makes me pause a little bit. But because that's what happens. We had training camps in Nyahururu in Kenya there, and then he had a training camp in London where he would take these athletes, and after hunting them, canvassing, recruiting them, he would get some top crop guys that had potential to go and harness money in Europe. Brilliant idea on paper. In reality is where I'm going in to find out whether it's real or it is authentic. And so he does this, and then of course one of the things about when you're white in Kenya, you get in front of the line and people bow down. It's a colonial mentality. It is subservient. It is subjugating. It is sometimes when you watch this, you scratch your head and you get either mad or you ain't just do something. Anyway, Kim, because of the fact that most of the athletes in Kenya, let's put it this way, they are Kenyans, they are black, right? So you have this guy in front who is the leader of this new empire of facilitating and managing Kenyan athletes. They don't know anything about Europe, which is true. So he takes them, of course, he has a way of getting passports, he has a way of getting visas to England, he has a way of navigating Europe. So he takes these athletes from this Nyahururu training camp, which was very popular back then. I don't know how Nyahururu is these days, because I think things have moved to Eldoret and other parts and Iten. But Nyahururu was the mecca. It was the training ground. It was a breeding ground for athletes back then. So Kim and his empire lays us infrastructure to recruit and promote and kind of take these athletes to Europe where they make some form of income. Incredible idea. And he does this in a way that it looks fluid. It's flowing until we'll go to a point whereby you start to ask yourself some questions too, because the system is dictating almost everything, from the passport, the visa, where they're staying, and then when they come to London, he had a place for them in London where they train, sleep, and I don't think there's a lot of movements for these athletes because they don't know what to do, they don't know where to go, they don't have means. They're coming from villages. Hopefully they come here and they are walking and they are woke. But as we go on to looking into Kim's empire, we find something here that to me becomes problematic, because he starts to monopolize the whole structure to a point whereby it was Kim. If you talk of, if you want to go professional in Europe, or you're not professional in the world, it was a Kim enterprise. Kim Empire, Kim McDonald's. I'm gonna call McDonald's here for you to appreciate it more. So that is Kim per se, and I think where I'm going with this is because when this idea of professionalism comes into play, Kenyans are way behind. The only thing we had was athletes. How to facilitate that is these shrewd businessmen, and they could have been legit. Maybe Kim, to other people, he was a god. He was a legit guy. There's some people who swear by him. It's okay. But I'm speaking from a perspective of the lack of transparency and the gap between what he was doing and what I think the athletes knew. Because from London, it goes that they train, they sleep, they shit, they shower, and then there's somebody who take them to the airport, get them the visa, then they travel through Europe, different meets or Grand-prix in Europe. And most of the time, these athletes had no idea what they're earning. I have to tell you that right up front. If they did, they were very smart. I mean, there's a few in the group who knew what was going on, and they would ask. But most of the time, you just told to go run or go race, and you know you got paid, so you believe. But you don't see this paid. You know when do you see this paid? At the end of the season. So, or if you are going to Kenya, if you want to go to Kenya, then they give you a cut. But for most part, this cut is just lump sum. So, but you don't know what you earn because there's no paper trail. Everything back then was paid hard cash. Dollars was the money of transaction. And let me tell you why I'm laying this foundation, because I had an early experience myself in 1993. I had finished college here. I did very well. I hadn't finished. I had gone to nationals. So I was feeling I was at the top of my game in 800 meters, and I decided to take my talent to UK. I went to Manchester, and I think I had a decent guy there, an agent, of course, he's Brit. He flew me to Belfast, North Ireland, where I raced the mile, the first time I ever ran the mile, ever. I was in the field full of Anderson Kiplagat. You don't know him, you're young. I think he's a Danish. He came together with Wilson Kipketer. He was in the same meet. Wilson was in that race. He ran the 800. Patrick Conchella was back there. I remember that because we were roommates. So after the race, I ran a 4:10. I think the winning time was like 4 minutes or 3 something. And yeah, that's a gap. That's okay. But that's 4:10 for me. I didn't have that before I took it. So I thought I ran okay. So when I went back to the hotel, back then there was a guy, a character man, a drug lord, or I call him athlete lord. His name was Andy Norman. He was a big European. He was the bulldog of promoters in Europe. He was notoriously, he wielded a lot of power, if I may say. He was such a powerful promoter, and he was such an arrogant bastard. Let me tell you why. So I remember going to his office to, I didn't know how much I was getting paid. That's how blind most Kenyan athletes were. I hope they've gotten better to know what they're getting and what the whole structure of how the payment and the professionalism works. I hope they got it better. But I went to the office and said, hey, hi Andy. I said, hey, hello. And he said, what's your name? I said my name. Then he went, there's a roster or something. I think maybe he had a spreadsheet back there where you could tell him what I'm paid. I'm supposed to be paid. But he went to there. The first thing he told me is that, oh, you underperformed. You didn't run very well. I was like, okay. This guy says I didn't run very well. I had 4:10. I said, okay. For me, I felt good. But remember one thing. Back then, if you are running, if you participate, if you appear in a meet, you are supposed to be paid. That was a rule. It was an acknowledgement in both parties. But when it came to this moment, I'm dealing with this guy, Andy Norman. He looked at my performance and he says, I didn't do very well, so I don't get paid. So I'm like, huh? I don't get paid. He said, yeah. Then he said, next. So from I don't get paid to next, I'm pretty much, I have to leave, right? So I left. I was like, where do I go from here? So I didn't get paid, but I went to Belfast. I had a good experience. Back then, the tanks, the British Empire was still was putting a stronghold on the Irish population there. I remember tanks were pretty much surrounding the stadium where we were, so to speak. And I remember we were running on some trails, and there were a military guy with big machines. Those were dark days, my friend. I'm talking of an empire here. And so they hadn't fallen that bad yet, back up there. So that is my first encounter with the athlete lord in Andy Norman. He passed away I don't know how many years ago. So this is what I'm trying to say here. I think I'm trying to articulate a story or suggest or even bring to the front view that we've come a long way as athletes. And this idea that you don't get paid or somebody is a gatekeeper, somebody is a broker, somebody is a shrewd broker that can determine who gets paid and how much without you as an athlete knowing what is going on is a history. It's a history of exploitation. It's a history of taking advantage of people who come from certain parts of the world, and I'm talking predominantly of Kenya. And Kim McDonald's, as much as people have talked great about him, I have issues that I'm raising. Whether they're legit or not, I'm just raising issues. Because from that point on, I started asking questions, and I was a curious, but I got into trouble because I have a big mouth. You can tell, right? So Kim McDonald's and his empire amassed a lot of talent. He harvested, he canvassed the country. He does this in a way that I remember that it was compromising even within the national leadership of athletics, where they just said it's him. And I think, of course, in Kenya, we are very good in corruption. We indulge in corruption like it's a drug about to go out of fashion. So my suspicion, and I think I have a very clear mind when I say suspicion, is that he could buy his way through the system. And how he treated athletes is still questionable to me, given the perspective I'm trying to articulate here. And so that Kim had this factory of athletes or camp of athletes that he could just export and fly all over Europe, and they would just run for him, so to speak, as a promoter, as an agent, as a broker, as an emperor sitting in Buckingham Palace right outside London. And he gets paid because all the money went to a central bank of the emperor Kim, and he would distribute them arbitrarily. And you get paid at the end of the season. You know how that template sounds like very colonial and a masterpiece from a stroke genius from a masterpiece of a colonials. And Kenya, employees are paid monthly, so it's okay for them to wait for a month. Talk of perfecting it. And so these athletes, as I keep saying here, they could go to different races around Europe, and most of them stayed in hotels that were paid for by the organizers who wanted these guys to run. And by the sad thing about this is that most of the race I remember going to, the crowd was just such a marvelous experience. Signing autographs and all this. And Kenyans have struggled to navigate the world per se. Our PR, the way we articulate ourselves has not been as great. I can tell you this from my experience. We don't know how to sell ourselves. We don't know how to come across with a story of articulating who we are, where we're coming from, why we're trading, how we are. We haven't done a good job. And maybe that's where these shrewd characters, these guys who can dictate and manipulate the idea of how we navigate the world, come in. And if they are white, maybe they sell. And I'm just saying this not as a racist person, I'm just saying because people take advantage of a vacuum. When there's a gap, somebody will enter in and they can say promote. And Kim Empire say promoted to a point whereby I remember there's some meets you would go to and Kenyans are just herding. They look like an herd of Kenyans. They're just sitting there, oblivious of the surroundings because they don't know. They don't know how to navigate that world. In the hotels, they look the same way. They stay in these hotels, and then from the hotel, they go to the airport, they go running. To be known to be as a runner, if that's all people know you for, I think that's why I'm speaking. I don't think just being a runner is enough. There's more to running than just being a runner. Oh, you are from Kenya, so you run. That to me is that I'm tired. You get tired of it. And I remember in Europe when you could see Kenyans, we look Kenyan. I mean, don't get me wrong. We have that look. You cannot run away from it, so to speak. But just to be known for that you don't have any fun. I remember sometimes I would encounter this guy in Sweden, and they look like they're just sitting there. The world is passing by. There are some who are smart. There are some who are ahead of the game. They are curious because curiosity expands your horizons. And I think people like him and the Empire enterprise and the management enterprise he put in place kind of became a place whereby he played Kenyans. He played the Kenyans to a point whereby sometimes I wonder whose interest was this enterprise or this empire for. The fact that you don't pay these athletes, they seem like they could be traveling through Europe. All they did was run, shower, go to the hotel. What else is there? Is there anything else these guys could do? Maybe, of course, rest to recuperate for the next one. But all they did to me was, like in this day and age, they became industrial. This industrial racing system going on here. They were racing week in, week out. It was so bad. I think Kim almost became a monopoly. The Kim brand, the Kim enterprise became the Amazon of running world. You have to go through London to get to any meet, to get to any race. It was, to me, when I look back, I was like, wow. I remember one time we were in Finland and we were having this conversation. How does he do that? It's because it's a colonial mentality, man. I hate to say that. He had subdued. He ruled from the top, and he was that good. He had put a structure. He had put a brand. He had blindfolded. He had hypnotized the leadership of the country, and people. He did a good job. Don't get me wrong. He came when there was nobody, but I think he took it to another level of exploitation. And I think the reason why I say is because he has so many athletes that I think it was ridiculous. You could go to a meet whereby it was only his athletes from his empire, so to speak, his factory, his system that were in that event. I'm talking of distance running. From the race, from the ones who were racing to the pacemaker, you could see a crowd of his athletes. That's how dominant this guy was. There's a meet in Finland known as Lappeenranta. It was way somewhere in Finland, where he pretty much told the guy who was organizing the meet or the event, just give me the whole check. And nobody, I was there in Finland, we were trying to get some of these races. You had no chance, none unless you go through London. So London, Heathrow Airport is where was the gateway to Europe as an athlete. Heathrow freaking airport. The empire never left Kenya. The colonials never left Kenya. You still have to go through London. Even to this day, I marvel at that thought. But it's a brilliant thought for me to think about because Kim mastered. He took the template of the colonials and just used it in a way that is just, I gotta say, it's brilliant. And the other concept for me that troubles me in this empire was how he kind of did not see long term for athletes. Let me tell you why. Moses Kiptanui, who was a world record holder in steeplechase, was a different story, a different success story. I think William Tanui was in that empire or that enterprise of Kim. But if you look at even William Tanui, a gold medalist from Barcelona, his career takes a different twist. He even runs 1500 meters. He was not young, but he seems to have lasted long because he started kind of becoming versatile. He became a pacemaker. There are exceptions to what I'm saying. Moses Kiptanui was different. Noah Ngeny is when I'm going to zoom in and ask myself what happened to him because he had a career-ending injury after winning gold in 2000 in Sydney. My perspective is that, and the other one is Daniel Komen, 96, barely 98, a small window. And by the way, when Daniel Komen comes into rise, there's Eliud Kipchoge. Do you know what Eliud Kipchoge is? This guy can still run marathon right now, 20-something years later. Daniel Komen was even better, talent-wise, than Eliud. Because his time in 3,000 meters, world record right now, of 7:20, nobody is coming close. I think 7:25 is the one I heard last time, or 7:23. 7:20 is, that was 7:20 is running a mile, maybe 3:38, 2 miles, 3:38, you run 3:38, and then you come back, you run another 3:38. Nobody does that these days. So Daniel Komen comes into rise. He joins the McDonald's empire. He rises so fast, but he only rises so much and for so long. Because I remember something about Daniel Komen. He was racing almost every 2 days. I don't know, maybe it's me exaggerating. It could be playing hyperbole here or exaggerating the concept of over racing. Daniel Komen was raced to oblivion. I can repeat that. Daniel Komen, with his talent and his capacity, was over-raced. He became the brand to be milked, to be squeezed to the bones. I think by 98, there was no more Komen. We only talk of him in the past in 1998. When it comes to 2000, there's no more Daniel Komen at all. It's like you could check in the back, in the rear mirror, it's not even there. He was gone. That is a system of what you can overproduce, as some people will say, with a product. But Kim was using these athletes as products where he could squeeze every juice for a short period of time, because Daniel Komen was the first Kenyan in the Grand-prix cycle, I remember, that beat Haile Selassie in Zurich. And when I remember that race, let me tell you why I remember that race. Kim runners ran into the field led by Joseph Tengele and celebrated as if they had won a gold medal in some Olympic or World Championship. That's how dominant Gabriel Selassie was. And that's how Kenyans felt at relief, almost like they were vindicated. They had finally got the elephant out of the room. But there's a bigger elephant I'm talking about here in the room. It's Kim, McDonald's, Enterprise, and Empire. Maybe I've overstated the case here against him. He did some good things. I think he's the one that is a pioneer of professionalism in Kenya, maybe. I think if Henry Rono had an agent, I think he was, I don't know which country he was from, Henry Rono, whom I talked about in my last episode, whom Henry Rono at the end of his career speaks of how he exploited him and used him as a brand and never paid him as he was supposed to be paid. So even in the 80s, in the 70s, we had this exploitation being practiced on people who are maybe from Kenya and poor countries because they don't know the system. So is it a form of exploitation that has a little bit of a a whistle in the back that you say, ooh, we've had these stories before. Yes, it is. And I'll say this not in a way that I'm trying to be demeaning or in judgment. I'm just stating the facts. And if they fall in a place where they need to fall, I'm good with it. So the Kim McDonald's athletic management empire plays that role for a long time. In fact, at one point, he started playing what I call divide and rule. How do you divide and rule? You kind of take your favorite or your big name within the running team or the running camp and kind of elevate their status. He does this with Moses Kiptanui, whereby Moses Kiptanui had earned a huge amount as a world champion and as a world record holder in meets, because when you have a gold or you have a world championship, you go to some of these races, organizers pay more so that people can watch a gold medalist or a world champion. So at that point, his earnings, Moses Kiptanui's earnings were up here compared to other pawns, so to speak. And so I think Kim created a relationship with him whereby he borrowed some of his money and then he became a partner. And to become a partner, that means your status are elevated. That's a divide and rule. Colonials did that with the chief and promoting other people around Kenya. People do that. It's something they practice a lot, and it works, sometimes backfires. So it backfires because Moses Kiptanui was resented because people saw he was treated within the hierarchies. And the resentment continues even as other athletes move in. You start to see resentment and divide, whereby as you resent, this guy moves closer to the emperor. It's a very strange world. At a certain point, I think Moses Kiptanui has confessed to that kind of divide and rule that was within. People don't speak when they're inside until they get out. Maybe that's what I'm doing. But for this episode, I was just trying to lay as a whole fabric, maybe a bedrock or whatever you call it, of how athletics have come a long way from the struggles of the past matriarch and professionals who should have been earning money, but they've been exploited, and how the shrewd business people entered they created, so to speak, business platforms, and how they played out among those less educated, maybe I may say, or not enlightened, or they don't know what's going on. And by the way, it is so sad that I'm saying this because I think it's wrong. It's wrong to take advantage of people because they don't know less. They know less about something. I think they should have maybe tell them or draw something for them to know. Maybe it did, but it wasn't transparent to me as much as I remember. So I speak to this because I think justice is not something you can continue ignoring, or any form of exploitation is not something you can continue to say doesn't exist. And I think in the athletics world, I think there should be an idea of equity. There should be an idea of justice, and exploitation should be exposed. And this has happened a lot, even to a point whereby I can say even now in Kenya, I can hardly mention an agent or a manager or a promoter or somebody who has the well-being of the locals as they move in their profession. Patrick Sang is an exception. I have a friend here who has done very well in getting some athletes to America to race and kind of coordinate their activities so they can get a form of earning or living. But for most part, I think what's lacking is that transparency is lacking a lot, and corruption doesn't help that either. And so as I speak of athletics in general, I think my biggest takeaway from interacting in this kind of platform is that I think there has to be a reckoning that just because you're from a poor country doesn't mean you should be paid less. And just because you're from a poor country, I don't know what that poor looks like, you should not have information. And I think the other takeaway for me is that the history of Kenyan athletes is not the greatest history as much as we say they are runners. There's been exploitation. There's been plundering of them. There's been people taking advantage of their lack of knowledge. In fact, Kim had a contract with Nike, and I can say this without mincing words, that Kenyans had no idea what he signed. All they saw was uniforms. And some uniforms disappeared to some rogue guys. So I'm saying this because it's wrong, period. We cannot just celebrate Olympics and these flags and these personalities without saying that they deserve more. So it's a good day when I speak like that. I feel good about it. Honestly, I'm not I don't know what I'm putting there. I'm not apologetic about what I say. I think I'm speaking from an experience that I went through, whereby you start to ask yourself, is it just because I'm black? Maybe. It was episode 39. We have a long way to go because justice is always asking questions. Because injustice looks like it's ruling, but it's gonna be exposed.